Hey everybody, it's Jason. Welcome back to the channel. I hope you're all doing well, and if you're brand new here, thanks for clicking on my face. So real quick before we get started, obviously, I am not actually in my apartment. I'm in my childhood bedroom, of all places. There was an issue with parking at my apartment complex due to coronavirus, and my girlfriend and I talked about it, and we decided to go back and spend some time with our parents while this all blows over. But enough about all that, let's get to the review of this show because I'm speechless. Alright, so season 1 of Demon Slayer: Kimetsu no Yaiba.
Nope.
So basically the show is about a young boy named Tanjiro whose entire family is murdered by demons, all except his sister, Nezuko, who is actually transformed into a demon. So at the beginning of the show, he's driven to turn her back into a human, and he learns that the only way he can do that is becoming a member of the Demon Slayer Corps. So essentially, once that's established, the rest of the season is focused on his adventures as a demon slayer and kind of expanding the world of what it is to be a demon slayer. All right, so let's just go ahead and start from the top. I had huge expectations for the show going into it, which is always really dangerous. But I mean, at a certain point, it just couldn't be helped. I mean, this was one of the best rated new shows to come out for anime in 2019. Highly rated. A bunch of my friends have told me I need to go see it, and sometimes you just can't avoid it. Ideally, with movies, television, anime, whatever it is, I like to go in as blind as possible, but couldn't help it with this one. That being said, the first half of the first season was honestly a little bit of a letdown for me. So don't get me wrong, it was still good, right? And definitely above average, but at the same time, it wasn't at that great tier that I was expecting it to be at. The only reason I say this is because I think I found the first half of the first season a little bit formulaic. And what I mean by that is, if you're a big fan of anime and you've seen a lot of adventure anime, you all know that the protagonist is always someone special or has something about them. And, in anime gets away with this a lot more than I'd say any other medium, but there's always, a fair amount of internal dialogue, a lot of voiceover, and a lot of explanation as to why. If you're watching a movie and just a normal action movie, right? A normal American action movie, if the villain in their head every 2 seconds was narrating and explaining what was happening as it was happening, you'd be a little bit like, what the fuck am I watching? But anime actually gets away with it, right? And not only that, it's actually, it helps the show, it adds something to it. And I haven't figured out why anime gets away with it, and I'll probably do another video on my thoughts on that. But the main point is that those inner thoughts and those voiceovers, build up our protagonist. And in this case, it didn't seem like anything new. While Demon Slayers and the Demon Slayer Corps is obviously different than any other anime, it is just still that standard formula of here's a hero, they're special, here's why, and we're gonna hype it up. The other big issue I was having with the first half of the first season is that everything started to seem a little bit like a procedural. And when I say procedural, I'm talking like Law and Order, for instance, right? They have a crime at the beginning, they solve it at the end, and then the next episode they have another crime, they solve it, and so on and so forth, right? It seemed like that a little bit with Demon Slayer for a few episodes, maybe 2 or 3 episodes, right? Tanjiro would get called by a crow. The crow would say, here's your next mission, go on the mission. He would struggle a little bit, but in the end, he slayed the demon. And then, next episode, same thing all over again, right? I mean, there were a few exceptions where, it was a cliffhanger of an episode. It would end, he hadn't killed the demon yet, but then he killed it by, the beginning of the next episode. So from that, to me, it was just kind of procedural, right? And again, it wasn't bad, right? The animation quality in the fights alone was fantastic. It just didn't blow my mind or anything yet. Now, having said all that, while I didn't love the first half of the first season, the second half of the first season just kicked my ass. They started adding a few more characters during the second half of the season, Zenitsu and Inosuke, and I know I'm butchering these names, by the way. Of the 2 types of Asian that I am, Japanese is not one of them. It's actually half Thai, half Chinese, if you're wondering. And no Janet. You can't have my mom's pad thai recipe. Anyways, once those 2 get added to the mix, along with Nezuko, who fights alongside Tanjiro sometimes, once the 4 of them start going on adventures together, it expands a little bit, right? And then we get to a little bit more of the world building for Demon Slayer, and we're introduced to, I think, the 12 moons is what they call them. The 12 most powerful demons in the demon world. And then, it starts building from there. And once it starts building and expanding, that's when it really got me. And that's when I really think it started to deserve the title of the best new anime of 2019. Because eventually, as everything starts to build off of itself, we get to the Natagumo Mountain arc, and that's where this creepy ass spider boy decides to make an appearance. Now, with that arc, I think I watched actually every episode in that arc straight. Like I just stayed up and I couldn't stop watching it. Like, it's the first season, and certain characters have plot armor, as they call it. But I mean, there were a couple of times where I thought to myself, maybe they really are going to kill him off, and I think they did a fabulous job of making it feel like the characters were actually in danger. For like a little bit, I didn't know if all three of them were going to make it out alive, or I guess I should say all four of them, including Nezuko. That arc actually also introduced us to the rest of what's called the Hashira, which are, I think, the highest ranking demon slayers inside of all the Demon Slayer corps, right? And to see all of them together at the end was actually it was just really exciting. Whenever you have like a big assemble moment in anime, or like, you go down the road like one by one and they'll like have their name here, and then they always look cool. There's almost nothing like that moment in anime. Now, obviously, everything I've just talked about from the second half on, I've been completely raving about the show, but there's still something that pushes it a little bit over the edge, and it's the final episode of the first season. In that episode, basically, spoilers. So basically what happens in that episode is that Japanese Michael Jackson decides to get rid of the lower half of his 12 demon moons. And I think it's like the opening first maybe 10-15 minutes of that episode, but the amount of animation that went into it, it's literally something I've never seen before. The rooms are changing. It reminds me a little bit of Christopher Nolan's Inception, when Joseph Gordon-Levitt's kind of like fighting in that hallway, and it was the rooms are switching, and it's violent. That episode is gorier than any other episode by far, and usually I'm not like a huge fan of like just gore, but the way they do it, it was so stylized, it was so lively, and it made your skin crawl just a little bit because it was just such detail in the animation. And another thing I want to talk about in the animation is they used whenever Tanjiro had, like, his element is water, right? So whenever his attacks come with the sword, there's like a waterfall that comes behind it. And they did something I never have seen, I think, in modern anime, which is they used like almost traditional Japanese art, like that kind of style and that kind of drawing, to depict the water when it came out. And I was just like, whoa. Because as a huge fan of like traditional Japanese art, I've always like really admired traditional Japanese tattoos. It was actually really cool to see it. I never thought I would see that in like a 2019 anime. So obviously, despite my initial reaction to the first half of the first season, by the end, I was hooked, right? And I could see exactly why the show had gotten all the praise that it did. And it, in my opinion, 100% deserves it. From the animation quality to the storyline to the main villain in the show, who I think is pretty much the standout character in the entire season, I can't say enough great things about this show now, which makes me really upset because I think in the last episode of the first season, they say the next part of the show isn't actually going to be a season, it's actually going to be a movie. So I'm really excited to go see it as a movie, but at the same time, I kind of wonder if it's going to be like traditional anime movies where it's a movie and it's like, but it has nothing to do with the actual show. This seems a little bit different to me. It seems like the continuation of it is in the movie, and then season 2 technically will pick up where the movie ended. So I'm very confused about the layout of the show. Definitely not traditional, right? You usually have to be in your like 4th or 5th season before you get a movie, but apparently it's already been greenlight, or greenlit, I guess is the word. And just, I couldn't be more excited to see it. It's supposed to come out this time November. Might be delayed, like a lot of movies are being delayed right now. But either way, really excited to see the movie whenever it comes out. Like I said, this show I think deserves all the praise that it has gotten. If you haven't checked it out yet, do yourself a favor and check it out. But that's going to do it for me. I hope you all stay safe, stay kind, and if you haven't already, hit like and subscribe. I'd love to see more of you.